So Logan Paul versus KSI 2 was a very exciting match to watch. You can tell that it was two YouTubers were able to become professional boxers, sell out the stadium, and make records on the zone. I wanted to just point some issues that Logan had throughout the match. I'll be breaking this down by round, as well as giving some final thoughts for what could have been done better on his part. And I think it's important because I think Logan actually had so much potential to do so much damage and so much work in the ring, but a lot of it wasn't shown. KSI, I believe, lived up to his full potential that night. He boxed beautifully. He was able to utilize his opponent's weaknesses as well as prepare accordingly. So I wanted to give these notes out. I know Logan Paul's very, interested in boxing. Keep in mind, I am not a professional at this at all. I'm just a person that enjoyed the event, and I have very limited knowledge of boxing. But I want to kind of break down the rounds and some of the thoughts that I had. So I wrote down the list of notes I had for this. So round one, I think one of the issues that we saw was Logan was kind of getting on the bad terms with the referee. He kept holding KSI's head, and then the referee's like keep telling him to stop it. He kept doing it. I felt like that kind of built up towards round four, where he ended up getting deducted 2 points. But going to the next thing, I think when he was fighting, he needs to put his hands up. His hands were always down, right? But if you looked at the first fight, KSI made the most impact with his overhand rights or overhand shots. So when you put your hand down, you're just that much open for these overhands. Of course, Logan Paul, had great footwork. He was able to dodge a lot of these shots, but your escape, like, so if you use if you're just dodging and you're not actually countering or you're not blocking, then you kind of give up that space. So I think that when it came to the first round, you can see Logan's putting his hand down and trying to box that way wasn't really working. Especially because after the first fight, you saw that KSI had the most impact by these overhand shots. So I think Logan Paul putting his hands down was just that much more open to the shot. And props to Logan Paul for not getting hit by a million of these, but he did a lot of good work, and I noticed he had a lot of good footwork in general. But in terms of his hands, I think it would have been better for him to keep his hands up. Um, let's see, yeah. So the first round, he just kind of started slow. He said earlier that didn't feel well, and he wanted to try to take the first two rounds at a very casual pace. But that might have worked against the old KSI, but this is you're talking about a professionally trained boxer at this point, and someone that had a camp that was preparing for this fight against Logan Paul. That's why you saw some of the overhand rights. It's because Logan Paul just didn't know what to do against them in the first fight, and for him to actually start up slow in the 6 round battle is just going to be very detrimental to him because you never know what's going to happen. And of course, with Logan Paul, yeah, the sickness, but he should be training his cardio so that every round matters, especially in 6 rounds. I think the most issue with that he had in the first round is not putting his hands up, and not actually learning to deal with these overhand rights that he knew was coming. So round two, the commentators were kind of even foreshadowing, saying the uppercut is there. He needed to throw his right. And Logan Paul, I think some of the mind games was a lot of people were praising his jab from the first fight. Oh, his jab is so great, but you were fighting a boxer who wasn't really trained at that point. KSI was doing a lot of trainings, but he wasn't as experienced. So the jabs would be a lot easier to land against someone that doesn't know how to dodge or doesn't know how to counter that. And with this new KSI, it was just prevalent that he just that wasn't an issue for him. He was moving. He was doing he was on the offensive, and a lot of that kind of comes to show that I think a lot of people. I think he overemphasized his jab. Like, sure, jab is good, but that's not the end all. You have to match that with some punches, some right straights, some uppercuts, and etc. Um, I think an important thing that he could have done is actually learn to counter. And this is really important because, when KSI is throwing these overhands, Logan Paul needs to be able to monopolize on that. He needs to be able to block and counter by using his hands more. And of course, Logan Paul, his jabs, I'm sure, hurt. Logan's a tough, big guy, but imagine if he drew a straight right hand, when KSI's overhanding. So one thing that I would have suggested, and a lot of pros would know this way more than I do, is either utilizing the KSI's overhand by getting his hand up and moving forward with the punch. That's an easy way to counter. Guarding your head while hitting. You want to block and attack at the same time, not just dodge every overhand or just just the block. Because essentially you're telling KSI, oh, I can just keep throwing these because I'm not going to be countered. Countering would have stopped a lot of these overhands and actually hurt KSI effectively because KSI's head was just out in the open when he was throwing these overheads. So if you're blocking and attacking at the same time, he can't just throw these wild swings at you. And sure, you can dodge it, but you're not really making him scared of it. If I'm KSI and I'm throwing these overhands, then and that's not being countered, then yeah, I'll throw them all night. Because if it hurts, and this guy's just running away. So that's the round two. I'm actually not going to break down who I thought won each round. I think there's just enough of that. I want to just talk about the fundamentals that I saw in Logan that needed to work on. Uh, Round three, I think the commentators had a great point, and these commentators, they watch a lot of boxing, and they just see what's going on, and they had some a great former referee there as well. Logan needed to throw that right straight down the middle. And it's very important because if a guy's like swing like this, your straight is gonna land there faster than his overhand, right? Especially if you're blocking and bam. Logan's a tough guy. If his jab hurts you, then this right hand straight's gonna knock you out. But that wasn't there, and of course, Logan wasn't feeling right. But I think just the way that he was training. I mean, maybe it's. I think it was just a mental and physical thing that night. But if he drew that right hand straight, it would have been a huge impact. Let's see. You can see the referee still, kind of annoyed at Logan. He was like, "Relax, I got it." When Logan was complaining about the back of the head. KSI did hit the back of the head, a few times throughout that round. But it's also important that Logan Paul still has his defense up. It was pointed out that his chin is too high. He's I think he's a taller fighter, but when your chin's so high up, one shot and you're like, it can be a big factor, especially if your hands are down. If my hands are down like this and my chin is up, bam. That's why these overhands were such a dangerous weapon, because sure you can dodge it, but at the same time, if you miss one, then you can get hit really hard. Um, It's also important because when KSI was clinching with him, I think in round three, when it was breaking, KSI was just throwing that punch out, and that would have been very dangerous for Logan. If he got hit by that, especially when they're breaking the clinch, that could have been bad news for Logan. This is the round that KSI did hit Logan. I think that looking at the replay, it does look like the back of the ear, not the back of the head. So the back of the ear right here, and I think that was actually an effective knockdown. KSI did the right hit, and even the commentators and the referee stated that was a knockdown. It's just one of those things, it wasn't scored for them, but that did hit, in my opinion, of course. Round four, Logan had great footwork. It was kind of shown there. I think the way he was fighting, though, it just felt like he was kind of like the amount of punches he was throwing. Just kind of felt like he was fighting as if he was, I don't know, sparring almost. Like if you're gonna just throw lefts and you're not gonna really throw punches to finish someone as much, especially if you're facing the guy that's throwing so many punches at you and you're just jabbing away and you're not really doing any blocks and not really capitalizing on any open spots, open shots that you could have taken. I don't know. It's not as good. I think Logan was trained by Shannon Briggs, and Shannon Briggs is a knockout specialist. He's a hard hitter, but I think Logan Paul had all that training, but at the same time, I don't think it really showed in the fight. Conditioning wise, he might have been really tired, really sick, but if you're aiming to do a one-hit knockout type scenario, you got to build up that damage. These jabs, they hurt, sure, but imagine if you hit him with several rights. KSI would have been so much more hurt, and you can tell in the fight. Especially in round four, he was getting hurt. Let's see. There's the knockdown. I think Logan, when he countered with that uppercut, that was huge. That was beautiful boxing right there. But then he made the mistake to hold his head and then hit him again. I don't think that was necessary at that point. Like KSI's head was there. And, if you hit him right there, he was dazed. You got to follow up with that. Holding the head might have seemed like a necessity for you because Logan was kind of like not getting shots in. But in my opinion, I think he made a mistake by doing so. Of course, it's illegal. Of course, the referee took that against him. But in terms of where he had KSI at, KSI's head was already hit really hard. It was already facing the floor. And if he just connected again with another uppercut, then that would have been enough, I think. Let's see. You know, at that point, when Logan Paul did that, KSI dropped and he tried to hit him twice and hit him once when he was on the ground. That was just a mistake. This is like the most impactful round in terms of issues, like what could have happened. I think Eddie Hearn said it correctly, though. The referee is allowed to deduct points based upon their discretion, and when you're a professional fighter, you got to be aware of you know where you're at and be aware of what you're allowed to do. Because I think that at the spur of the moment, I get it. It was probably his first fight. It was his first professional fight, and he was just really honing it in. At the spur of the moment, it's just you're so used to wanting to just punch someone. But I think a lot of that came from the fact that he wasn't shooting enough shots during the previous rounds. Like he wasn't also, part of him might have felt like, oh, I finally got one down. I got to keep hitting him. So when he hit that one down, it wasn't actually that impactful of a shot. Some people called it a tap. But at the same time, if you weren't going to even do that much damage, why would you, it was just not useful for him. Like it was a spur of the moment thing. And I think that's an issue that he did. But hitting him when he was on the ground I don't think it really hurt him that much. I think it was just one of those things where it didn't outweigh the negatives in terms of that. So you didn't do much damage at that point. So it wasn't a good trade-off in terms of getting the -2. It gave KSI the time to recover. Eddie Hearn made a great point, which is, if you just hit him normally and, you kind of like knocked him down normally, that last hit to the head practically lost him the fight. Because at that point, KSI he was allowed 5 minutes to rest, but, KSI being a beast came up much faster than that. But, if he had to come up within 10 seconds and then you boxed him, then yeah, you would have had a huge advantage over that. And that's the biggest issue that Logan did. And of course, I think this round is highly looked upon in the fight. So especially because I think Logan, he had him, he had KSI, but he made the issue of, making that illegal shot when he didn't need to. And it cost him. -2 did cost him, and of course that's the referees. It's up to the referee; they're allowed to do that. They could have even, disqualified Logan, and but ultimately they have final say over that. So what I'm pointing out is the hit to the hit when KSI was on the ground wasn't malicious. According to the commentators, it wasn't really malicious. It was just one of those things, but that cost him so much in that fight. If you fought. He could have finished KSI at that point. If KSI had to give up in 10 seconds and Logan Paul, just bashed on him. But here's the issue that ended up happening. Even after the break, Logan goes back to jabbing. He doesn't really finish him. KSI at that point, you can tell it was just, he's at his weak point. You can finish him up. And you needed to step in and, get that knockout, finish him while he's down. But Logan went back to the jabs. At that point, you're dealing with a wounded animal that, it was your moment to take care of him, I think. And when it came to Logan just jabbing it out, I mean, it wasn't a good decision. I think Logan should have finished it at that point. And sure, he got -2, but even more so that he should be more compelled to finish him, finish KSI at that point. Round 5, KSI is a beast. He showed so much heart. I think Logan made him rest a bit too much, like after that you can still tell like KSI wasn't drawing as much as he could, he was just jabbing it out, blocking, jabbing it out. He wasn't doing his overhands anymore because he just knew, he needed to rest, he was still damaged from that and he was doing damage control. I think Logan should have, if it wasn't round 4, it had to be this round where Logan went to finish the fight, but he was he was just kind of playing it more passively, I think. And I actually think that if Logan was in a better physical status, like if he was better, like if he wasn't sick, like he said he was, he could have done a lot more damage. I'm sure in these spars that he did, and he did a lot more aggressively. I'm sure he fights more aggressively than that. It's just round five, it was just more of a round to let KSI rest a bit more. And you did finally see the 1-2, and it looked destructive. It looked strong, but you're kind of wondering why didn't use it later. These past 5 rounds, I don't even know if Logan hit over 15 right punches. He did the two, the uppercuts. He did some 1-2s here, but Logan just needed to throw his right, man. I'm sure his right would have been impactful, especially a 1-2. Yeah, like especially in the fourth and fifth round were so crucial for Logan to just go and finish the guy, finish KSI while he's still, still trying to recover, etc. But I don't think he did capitalize on as much as he could have, and I think KSI did such a good job in terms of, jabbing it out, you know, keeping up his heart, recovering, and that was to his praise. Round six, you can tell that Logan was a lot more active with his right hand, but at that point, KSI had recovered. It's already been 2 rounds. It's already like the sixth round, and at that point, the knockdown that Logan Paul had earlier was just KSI's back, and KSI, you can tell he trained his ass off because like he was there. He was fighting like a champion. He was fighting to the end, and honestly, if you compare the amount of damage and compare the amount of conditioning, I think KSI did the right work, man. So I mean, the round six was pretty much that. You see Logan doing more of his right hand, and at that point KSI was fighting back, and that's round six. But to kind of summarize the fight and kind of leading to more points, it's a little bit of it's too bad that Logan Paul wasn't feeling as good as he could have, because I mean, based upon what I thought I've seen and the footage that I've seen, I think that Logan could have done a better job personally. I think not in general, but in terms of his own capabilities, I think he could have done a great job. Whether it was him being sick or whether him, not being, there mentally, he just had to throw more. He had to be in the fight, and I don't think he was as much. Probably the last round or two in the fourth round, he kind of tried to step it up a bit more, but we just didn't see that as much. So it'd been a bit too bad because I definitely wanted to see peak KSI versus peak Logan Paul, and I think we saw peak KSI that night. Logan Paul, I don't think we saw it. I think he, mentally or physically, there was just something not there. In terms of the preparation, I was surprised. After the first fight, you saw the damage that KSI was doing to Logan Paul just by these swings because Logan Paul didn't know how to deal with it. And I figured that, I think in terms of this fight, Logan should have kind of practiced for that more, kind of prepare for that more. And I don't really see that there. And whether it was countering or whether it was, putting his hands up a bit more, that could have been a huge impact for Logan. He was training with Shannon Briggs, and that's great and all. It's just I think the putting his hands down, I don't think it would have worked as well with this fighter because KSI, is one thing that it's one thing to dodge or back away from an overhand right, but KSI was throwing them all night. Like that was his punch. That's all he had to do. Throw these overhands, and just land and hurt the guy. So in terms of like Logan keeping his hand down, I don't think it would have worked. Putting your hands, I'm sure it worked with his, the traditional boxers, but against a guy that had like KSI that had such great trainers, such great, conditioning, such great camp, I don't think it was the right move because Logan's head was just too open, and he wasn't prepared to defend against this. Because if I'm getting an overhand right with my hands down, the only option I have is to dodge. If my hands are up, then I can block and hit. I have much more options, a lot more defense on my end. Yeah. So I would have loved to have seen Logan kind of learning to counter that, learning to prepare against that defensively. Props to them both. They're both YouTubers that went through hellish training and did such a great job. But I definitely would have liked to have seen Logan at his peak because KSI, KSI was at his peak that night, and you can see it. It was beautiful work by him. Let's see. Other notes. I think Logan Paul. The first match, he practiced a lot of his jabs. His first match jabs were a big thing, but KSI is a different fighter in this fight. You can tell, and I think Logan Paul was just so used to throwing the jabs up high that when KSI is like docking, dodging and like throwing his overhand right or his overhands, at so many different angles, it's just kind of hard to prepare for that. So I think it's that's one thing. At the end, it's unfortunate that it came out the way it did for Logan. I think that if he really capitalized on the round four and not actually resorted to holding the head and hitting him on the ground, of course it's like an instinctive thing, I assume. But at the same time, if that didn't happen, I think it could have been a completely different story. Uh, I think one thing that was important though was when it came to seeing how when he got hit in the back of the head, um, or when it came to the footage where it showed like KSI hitting Logan and Logan falling down behind the ear. I mean, I think they were kind of trying to say it was a slip or whatever, but at the same time, he could have had it handled it a bit better. After the fight, you're kind of disappointed that you lost. You could have said, I think he should have just admitted that he got knocked down, but at the same time, it wouldn't look good for him because I think he wants the rematch and he's trying to justify it. But I mean, one angle I think he should have taken was, that was a knockdown, but my other one was also, uh, the the amount of time given to the opponent, the amount of points deducted. I think it would have worked better with the audience. You can tell a lot of them were kind of like annoyed at him, and uh, it's just a perception thing. So, in terms of this fight, I think it's just their first fight. No one's expecting too much. Like when I say too much, I mean like they showed up. They showed a great match. It's just in terms of it wasn't a championship. It wasn't like the world title, and it's literally your first fight. And I think a lot of people saw it more for a fight for their not for the like, oh, I need to have a unbeaten record. It's more of, oh, this is my. I think for Logan Paul, it could have he should have. I guess it was more like a redemption story type thing. So kind of just how he presented himself at the end could have been a bit better. Uh, let's see. Yeah, so just the overall analysis, I really do think that Logan's a really strong guy. I think he's actually really fit, and I think he could have done so much damage that night. It's just in terms of the preparation that he did, or in terms of like how he showed up that night, I don't think he really showed up, and it sucks because I would have loved to see that, and I think he has the capabilities to knock a lot of people out. Like he was saying with his sparring partners. But I think KSI showed up that night, and Logan Paul just wasn't really there. He wasn't really prepared, and it is what it is. Overall, these two YouTubers achieved kind of quite a lot, and I think it was great for them. And it's definitely, I know Logan Paul was kept saying like it's not an L in his mind. It's not an L. It's, they're not professional fighters. And they are, but like this isn't all they do. They're YouTubers. They have a great audience. They don't have to worry about whether or not they'll like not eat or not take care of their family if they win or lose. So I think this fight was more like a reputation thing, and when it comes down to it, you gotta kind of have to lose gracefully at times. I know that he's gonna probably try to see if he can get that -2 overturned and all that, but I mean, it is what it is. In terms of the boxing mechanics and the things that I saw, yeah, I think Logan has a lot of potential, but KSI had a great camp. He had a great, great coaches, great training, and I think Logan Paul put a lot of effort into what he did, but I think he kind of got better as a like better physically. Like he got more fit. You can see the footwork was amazing. His stamina didn't die out. But I think there's just a lot of skills or a lot of technical things that he could have improved on and kind of prepared for this fight. And props to him because not a lot of people kind of fight like KSI do, which is like just drawing the overhand rights and kind of like playing playing the angles and all that. So I think Logan Paul did a fine job, but in terms of how he fought, in terms of kind of just the things that I thought he could have worked to improve, we're just this. And of course, keep in mind, I'm not a professional at all. I just fan of the sport, and I thought that I would share these notes. If Logan Paul checks this out, feel free to hit me up. Uh, but yeah, man, great job on them both. They did a lot. They did a lot of impact, and yeah, that's it for me.